What's up, everybody? We've got a new episode from Invincible Season 3 to dive into after the 3-episode premiere last week. Before we get into my breakdown, I'd appreciate it greatly if you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's the easiest way to just show your support, and all it takes is one simple click. But with that being said, let's get into episode 4. This week's episode opened up with Rex and Ray shopping, with Rex adjusting, let's say, to his new life he's trying to live, being a better person. That's cut short by a fight though, and when the pair returns to the Teen Team hideout, Mark is there with the drone. Rudy can't confirm where it came from, but based on his findings and his ongoing beef, Mark's ongoing beef with him, Mark goes after Cecil, giving him a little early morning scare with an epic hallway scene. From there, he heads to his second first date with Eve, but as almost everything in his life is, that's interrupted as Fight Master and Dropkick return from the future. This storyline was also extended a decent amount for the sake of this show, as they're much more upfront with Mark about why they need him in the future. Instead of agreeing to go with them, they snatch Mark and jump into their portal, which that was actually probably the biggest change to this sequence of events. Kirkman also abandoned their trip to the cell in the future, inserting that dialogue as they just traverse the skies of the future instead. So, while there are a decent amount of changes, the core of what it is remains, which is good. Then there were more scenes added for the twins too, as we saw them escape their execution, where in the comics they just show up after Mark has killed Immortal, which, speaking of that, there were no shortage of changes there either, as it was mainly dialogue changes, again sticking to its core of Immortal, blaming Mark, and needing him so that he can finally just die. Their fight was much grander in scale in the show, at least to me it felt that way, and the twins actually arrive while the fight's still going on, as the Immortal then uses them in the show because of that, and it shifts into another situation where, Mark is kind of there, because it's not exactly somebody he knows or like his family, but kind of forced into taking another life. He still rips his head off and everything, but that's kind of how you gotta kill Immortal, and I get the change because the story's restructured in the show, but the scene hits harder when it's Immortal taunting Mark into his final breath. Essentially, with his portion of the episode, they decided to show us a lot of what they tell us in the book. That's not a terrible thing, but that's all. Anyway, Mark returns to the present, and this was a very minor change that probably mattered more to me than it should. In the books, when he leaves and returns, Eve hears "Hey you" before he comes back, but they use that "hey" for when his future self grabs his clothes from him in the future. But it works, as Eve provides the comfort he needs here in the show, and they head home for a little sexy time that sends us to a Viltrumite prison across the galaxy. There we get what I felt like was an unnecessary recap, showing Omni-Man trapped in his guilt of betraying both his given family and the one he had created on Earth. Then when he's taken for execution, Alan starts a prison break, and that's including breaking out Battle Beast, as they get an epic hallway scene too. Double hallway scenes, double the hype. They make their way to the execution room, with the Beast being promised Viltrumites to battle, which he finds. He's only got one of them though, as Alan takes on the other, knowing it'll force Nolan's hand to, at the very least, escape this prison with him. That's all successful, and then Nolan reveals the true truth that there is about, 50 pure-blooded Viltrumites left in the galaxy. With that, the episode finished as Mark finishes Giggity. In all seriousness, that was another solid episode, as Season 3 is shaping up to be the strongest season yet, as we're halfway through, adapting my favorite chunk of the story from the books that I've read so far. I still need to get to Compendium 3. I also thought this was quite possibly the best edited episode of the series. Everything was just so crisp, which then added onto the great action this episode already featured. And so that's going to do it for my breakdown of episode 4 from Invincible Season 3. The action was really the ace for this episode, whether it was the 2 hallway scenes or the double punch to the skull for the Viltrumite from Alan and Omni-Man, going from page to screen flawlessly. It was all great. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode though down in the comments below, and make sure you have a great day.